Assalamualaikum everyone and welcome back to your economics class. It's been like time that I couldn't take your class last week due to the result session. So anyways, we are continuing our onward topics and syllabus which we need to cover. So today the topic which has been brought to you is profit maximization. Now we need to know a few words just to have a little bit idea about that what we are actually about to talk about. So the profit. Now, what is a profit itself? It's something like an earning of a producer. You may call it like it's an earning of a producer, or let me just say add some more word that it's actually the reward or earning of factor of production. There are four factors of production, and one of them is entrepreneur or enterprise. So both of these, if they provide their services by combining all the factors of production, land, labor, capital, for that service, they usually earn profits. So profit is actually the reward and earning for one of the very important factor of production known as enterprise or entrepreneur, or in very simple words, the owner of the business or the producers. So today we are going to talk about that how the profit maximization, the topic which we have highlighted, why we are using the word maximization over here. We got to know the relationship of the maximization. Now the profit is something which is known as one of the basic objective of any firm, enterprise, producer or entrepreneur. So it's his basic objective. This objective motivates every enterprise or entrepreneur or producer to produce more. The more the profit, the more you will provide goods and services. The lesser the profit, you will switch your resources from that particular product, and you will endow or shift your resources towards something which gives you more profits. So we can figure this out that the profit maximization is one of the basic objective or the prime objective of any firm. So now this profit maximization is actually, we need to derive that how we can maximize it, how the profit can be maximized. So for that, we need to go somewhere in the background of this topic, some of the prerequisites that why we think that how the profit is determined, and how, through that equation, how we can maximize it. So if we talk about the profit is actually derived with two, or we can find out the profit with the help of two economic variables. One of them is known as the total revenue. And if we subtract this total revenue with the total cost of the firm, that will give us the profit. So it's very simple, like the total cost, we have studied that in very huge detail in our previous topics. We learned about the short-run costs, we learned about the long-run cost, we learned something about the economy of scale, how we can minimize the total cost, and how the economies of scales are giving benefit to the firm. That was a linked topic to that, and how the small firms, they are enjoying with their economies of scale. So this was our previous topics, which we have been learning. So the total cost is again coming back today in our today's topic, and the total cost is one of the part of this equation from which we can find out or determine profit. The other side is the total revenue. Now this is something which left to be discussed today. Now what are total revenues? So we are going to have a little highlight on this as well. But before we just highlight total revenue, if I just associate this again, the profit maximization can be achieved when out of these two values, one is maximized and the one is minimized. For example, if I just say that the total revenue, if they are maximized, if we just increase them And if we decrease the total cost of the firm, then we must believe that the profit will be maximized. We can see it with the help of some numerical example. For example, if you are producing anything and the cost which occurs is, let's say, $8. You're making anything, any product, and each unit gives you like $8. So definitely you'll be selling it with a little margin or a markup. Then let's say you're selling $10. So you can see $2 is going to be your profit. So this is a very simple calculation and maths which you could do. So what we have assumed that if the total revenue is increasing and the total cost is decreasing, this value may increase. So let's try that as well. Like if the total cost is falling, if we decrease it from $8 to $6, let's say if we increase the revenue from 10 to, let's say, $12. But how, that is a later on discussion. But this equation value, this is very much obvious that if the total cost of the firm falls and the revenues are increasing at the same time, this is going to increase the profit, and we can clearly see that it is rising from $2 to $6. So this is how the profit can be maximized. This is one of the very interesting questions which can be set by an examiner. They might ask you that how the profit can be maximized by the firms. So the very startup answer of that question is that when the total revenue are maximized and somehow the total cost, if they are reduced, this is the only way to maximize the profits. But how we would reduce the total cost and how we would increase the total revenue, that is not the part of our today's discussion. We will set up this topic in our upcoming lesson in this week. Today, we are just going to focus on one side which has been left over in the discussion of the profit maximization, and that is the total revenue. So we are going to set some objective. We are going to find out what are revenues and how we can find out that how the revenues can be calculated, what are the various types of revenues, and how their curves can be made, and how graphically we can illustrate and find out the profit. All right, so one of the part of the profit maximization or equation, the total revenue is, now what is total revenue? Now sometimes we are confused. We are usually saying that the total revenue is like the profit or income of the firm. Okay, now there is one little confusion which I have to clear. That what is the difference between revenue and what is the difference between an earning? Now revenues are not earning or income in economics. Revenues are actually an amount that is obtained or achieved after we make some sale. So whenever you're selling goods and services, whatever the amount that you receive is actually known as a revenue. Okay, in economics, all those things which are sold, any amount received after the sale is known as the revenue. Now, how to calculate this? We need to have two values or two information. One of them is known as the price of the product, and the other one is the quantity or the number of output you are producing. Quantity produced. Okay, so let's suppose if you are selling a good or that quantity produced on, let's say, $10. And at the same time, if you have like 5 units or any amount of goods, then the revenues which you are going to gain is going to be by multiplying these two values, and that is going to be $50. It's pretty simple, right? So you need to find out that if we are multiplying price with the quantity of any goods and services, that is going to give you the revenues. Now, which revenue is this? This is known as the total revenue which you are actually gaining. Okay, now we have another term which we need to introduce over here. If this is the total, like we can find out another trend which is known as the average revenue. Why we are studying average? If you just recall the cost of production topic, you must have learned the total cost, total fixed cost, total variable cost. And along with those total values, we were learning some averages of. So we have average variable cost at that time, which was extracted and that was derived, how we can calculate it. And then we have an average total cost. We got average fixed cost over here. Similarly, when we are learning the trend of total revenues, we need to know what are the total revenues, how we can calculate them, and how we can calculate the average revenue. So if you just recall, or you can review that how did we find out the total cost. So at that time, you had an option when the total cost was divided with the number of unit produced. So what did it give you? That gave you the average total cost. This is what we learned in the cost chapter. Now let's replace this average revenue today. So if we just replace average revenue in this, all we need to replace is the word revenue with the cost. So average revenue, if I just abbreviate it like AR, average revenue, then the total cost is going to be replaced with total revenue. And dividing with the number of unit produced is going to give us the average revenue. So now I think that we are familiar with the word total revenue and the word average revenue. So total revenue is something which we gain by multiplying price with the quantity. And when we divide the total revenue with the amount of unit produced, this will give us average revenue. Okay, so why we are learning average and why we are learning total? The total, this is very obvious that usually we find or place information that how we can have an accumulated value. Like, let's say if we just accumulate means something which we are summing and totaling. When we are like having a total amount of something. By putting the number of units, by selling more units, how much total revenues, right? But when we talk about the average, that means that how many per unit, each unit is giving you that specific amount. So average and total, there are two different things, and both of them should be understood that the total is something, the sum of all the information or the addition. And the average shows the average of it. Just like if you just see a cricket match, you find the total score on the board every time. And sometimes you're also calculating the average, like how many score required at each ball. What is the run rate, right? So run rate is the average of the cricket score. And the total score shows the total. So that's why these two values need to be discussed together. So there's no question like why we have to learn this average, why we are learning the total. Both are the trends and both actually have their equal importance at how we can display our information and knowledge. Okay, Now, after having this learning, we can now make a graph, and then we can, before graph, we need to find out some piece of information in the form of so let's put in a table. We are going to make like a quantity column. Then we can make a price column. And over here, we are going to make a total revenue and average revenue curve. Okay, so starting with the amount, let's say if there is a zero output, and if we assume that we are giving price of $10, I'm putting a dollar sign above the price, okay? So at this stage, definitely the answer is going to be 0 and 0. So let's say if we are producing 1 unit now, and we want to sell it at the price of 10. Why we are taking price 10? Obviously, when we are selling quantity, then we have to sell it on a price which should remain same. But do you recall that when we talk about their prices are same every time, we are actually referring to one of the market structure. Okay, so what is that market structure? We have studied two market structure. We have the perfect competition, we have the monopoly. And we know that the perfect competition, the prices are homogeneous. Homogeneous. So if you just refer back to the lessons, if you have missed that, you can find this information. The prices homogeneous means that the prices are same at every unit to produced. So we are going to put all the prices down here as same. And now if we just start selling the quantities, let's say 2, 3, and let's say 4. So what are the answers we get? Yes, we do get the answers that the total revenue is going to increase every time. So how to calculate the total revenue? This is the formula. This is how we learned a moment ago that if we multiply price into the quantity, this will give us the total revenue. So the answer would be 10, 20, 30, 4 into 10 is 40. Now this is the total revenue curve. How to find the average revenue? If we just divide this column with the quantity. Why? There is the formula. The total revenue divided with the number of units. So the answer which you get is 10, 10, 10, and 10. Okay, so this is the total revenue curves and graphs of which market structure? Okay, let me write on the top. This is for the perfect market firm, a firm which exists in the perfect market. And we know what are the types, don't need to go into the detail because the topic has already been given and can be referred in your previous lessons which has been uploaded for you. So now let's go with the graphs. Now if we just plot the graph over here, we're going to take two separate graphs showing the output quantity over here. Quantity, I'm just abbreviating it with QTY, that is quantity. And this is where you can show the revenues. And you can take the values from 0 to onward, let's say 10, 20, 30, and 40. Okay, so these are the revenues over here, which we are calculating. And the output, you can see how you would take the output values. It's from 0 to 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is quantity. So this is 0 with you. This is 1. This is 2, 3, and 4. And you can take 5 if you like. That is the scale. That's not a big problem for us. So how would you draw the diagram, dear students? So comparing this quantity with the total revenue, we find that at the first we have 0 point at here, at 1 it is 10, at 2 it is 20, 3 it gives us 30, and 4 it gives us 40. So joining all these dots together, this gives you a total revenue curve which is also abbreviated as TR, that is total revenue. Okay. On the below of this curve, we are going to take all the values over here. Once again, we know the output has been set from 0 to 4. And let's suppose if we this time take values, let's say 10, 20, 30, and 40, just like that. So what is the average revenue that you calculate? At 0, it is at 0, it is 0. So we can take that on over here. Okay, and just as a matter, when we take the 1 unit, it gives us out over here. At 2, again 10, 3, it's 10, at 4, it's 10. So joining all these dots together, this is going to give us average revenue curve, or in abbreviation, it's AR. All right, dear students? So this is the way you can draw both the curves together. Now, what type of total revenue curves and average revenue curves are there? I've specified that it actually shows a perfect market firm. This is for the perfect market. And we have imperfect market. And one of the example is monopoly. Their revenue curves are little different. They are different. Okay, why they are different? Because as per the conditions of the monopoly, we decided that the prices were not same. You can't change them, and we have learned one of the behavior of monopoly, that if they want to sell more, they have to reduce the prices. Did you remember that? If you're not, you can again refer to the monopoly lesson which was uploaded for you. It's still on that link which you can refer, and you will find this again, that in the monopoly, the behavior of the firm is whenever they want to sell more, they will reduce the prices. But if they want to sell less to the consumer, then they will charge a higher price. For example, I gave you at that time, like if the VAPTA, the only monopolist of providing electricity in Pakistan, what do? Yes, if they want to sell, they want lesser to be demanded, they are going to increase the prices. When? The summertime, when there is more consumption of the electricity. So you can see the electricity bills are more we see in summertime. So they want it to be less consumed, so they are charging a higher rate of its units which they are producing. But in the winters, when there is a lesser consumption and they are in doubt and fear of selling it, that if they are going to lose their sales or they might find a decline in their revenues or profits, so they are going to reduce the prices in winters, and they can make more sales and they can increase their more profit, just like we did right now. A moment ago, the beginning, profit maximization, increasing the revenue. So it means that we now need to review that how the monopolist revenue curves actually occurs. So for that, we are going to have a little change over here and a little bit over here. All right, dear students, so I'm assuming some values over here, and let's see how the curve actually persists. and how we can depict it. So, and let's say if we take a perfect market into the monopoly market. Now this time monopoly market firm, or you can say the monopoly firm, doesn't make any difference for us. So if we want to sell lesser, we are going to charge a higher price. So let's suppose if we take example, I'm going to add one more value so we can have even a better result. So let's place 5 over here. So we're making it more simplifying for you. So if they want to charge a $5 price, they might find that there is going to be a 0 total revenue. But if they want to sell more quantity, that means they have to reduce their prices from 5 to 4. If they want to sell more, then they have to go further, lower their prices. And if they want to sell onward more, we can see if they are going to behave something like that. Why it is happening? Again, I'm recalling that if they want to sell more, as per the law of demand, we understand that they are going to charge a higher price. The monopolist who can set the prices, remember that? Like they can make the prices, but in the perfect competition, you are just a price taker. That's why you are charging the same price. So this is how it happens in the monopoly. So let's plot these diagrams and we'll see how the curves actually occurs. So at point, if we just see how the total revenues actually happens. So we have like a 0 result over here. We got 4 and then 2, 3, 6. 6, and then we have a fall and we got 0 result. All right, so this is the value of the total revenue which you can find out over here. So it means that now the total revenues are changing, so we are going to change the scale of the revenues over here. So let's suppose if it is just like 1 and this can be 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Okay, and let's find out that how we can find the total revenue curve. So with these new scale of the value, we can find out that at 0 we have like 5, the price, if the price was 5, okay, so where the total revenue was 0, so we can take 1 point over here. When the quantity is 1, this is quantity 1, okay, so the total revenue is at 4. So the point will come over here, okay, and onward at 2 it is 6. So this is 2 and this is 6. Okay, again at 3 it is again 6. Okay, at 4 it is falling again at 1. Sorry, at 4, this is 4, at 4 it is revenues are falling again, and then 5 it is 0. So joining all these points together, dear students, this is the shape of the total revenue which we can find and draw in which market structure? The monopoly firm, or the market, imperfect market, where the total revenues are behaving little different. First, in the perfect market, it was moving straight upward, but in the monopoly market, it is increasing, and after one point, it is falling. So it means that the producer has to produce somewhere over in between 2 and 3. Okay? These are the 2 units, ideal units, where you can maximize your profit. Otherwise, if you produce lesser or more than or beyond 3, your profits will, or total profits will start declining. So at the monopoly, these curves or these trends are helpful for us to find out that as a monopoly, what and which output you need to produce. Is it you just keep on producing? No. If you keep on doing that, your total revenues might fall. Why? We understood that if you're selling it more, that means that maybe your prices and quantities are not competing with each other, and they are going to decrease your revenue. Okay, now what about the average revenue? So in average revenue, we can calculate how this total revenue divided with the quantity. So again, this is going to be 0. Dividing 4 with 1, we get 4. Dividing this with, we get 3, 2, and then 1, and then we get 0. Right? So if we just draw these, the average revenue, and in the below curve where we have to calculate the average revenue. We remember that? So average revenue, let's say start from 0 to 1, 2, 3, and 4. So deriving it first, then we have like from 0 point, at 1 it was 4, at 2 it is 3, at 3 it is 2, and at 1 it is 4, and at 5 it is 0. So joining all these dots together, this is going to give us a average revenue curve for monopolist. So dear students, summing up today's discussion, we learned about the revenues, how the revenues actually behave, and we learned about the two firms, how their revenues curves are different. Please remember that the cost of production of every firm, even monopolist, or even the perfect competition, or even any other structure, their cost curves are same. But the revenue curves are different. Why? Because they behave differently from each other. Why? They behave differently because they have different characteristics and features from each other, which we have learned in our previous classes. You need to review them again and see what we actually try to relate our today's topic. So the shape of the revenue curves are there. The revenues is not income and earning, which we learned today. We learned that the revenues are actually the amount which we earn after the sales, the amount which we receive as sales. The earnings or the incomes are a little different. There are 4 factors of production, and all those who are earning after providing the services, whatever they earn in the shape of wages, rent, interest, or profits, they are the incomes, but they are not the revenues because they are not selling in that shape. So that's it for today. I'm just setting a worksheet for you. I hope that worksheet will help you somehow to find out how to calculate the profit. Now you have the idea of how to calculate the total cost and what are the total revenues. If we just find out the profit while having these two values, this can help us to find and determine profits. So see you in the next class with how the profit can be maximized and what are the other objectives of the firm in this way. So until then, you have a wonderful time and have a safe day. Allah Hafiz. Assalamu alaikum.